the moment the elegant CEO pushed open the wrong therapy room door on a bright Monday morning. She expected nothing more than an awkward apology and a quick exit. Instead, she walked into a silence so heavy it seemed to stop time itself. Across the room sat a tired single father, holding a little girl's tiny backpack against his chest as though it was the only thing keeping him together. One unexpected mistake would uncover years of hidden pain, expose the loneliness behind wealth, and prove that sometimes the greatest healing begins with the truth, spoken by a complete stranger. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness if you believe in kindness and second chances. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories that remind the world compassion still exists. The city had awakened beneath a bright blue sky, and sunlight reflected from the glass towers that dominated the financial district. Every street was alive, with movement as office workers hurried toward another busy day. Among them was Serafina Cross, one of the youngest and most respected CEOs in the country. At only 38 years old, she had transformed a struggling technology company into a billion-dollar success. Newspapers celebrated her intelligence, investors admired her confidence, and employees respected her discipline. Yet beneath the polished appearance and expensive business suit was a woman who had forgotten what genuine happiness felt like. Her calendar was always full, but her heart had been empty for years. The appointment she was rushing toward that morning was meant to be a private consultation about workplace stress, carefully arranged by her assistant after months of exhaustion. Unfortunately, one small mistake at the reception desk sent her toward the wrong door. Inside that room sat Rowan Hale, a 42-year-old single father whose life looked nothing like Serafina's. His faded shirt carried the marks of honest work, and his hands were rough from repairing furniture in a small neighborhood workshop. Resting beside him was a colorful backpack covered with tiny stars and flowers. It belonged to his 8-year-old daughter, Maris, who had been attending art therapy sessions after losing her mother several years earlier. Rowan had accidentally entered the couple's therapy room while searching for the correct office after confusing the hallway signs. Embarrassed, he planned to leave immediately, but before he could stand, the therapist gently encouraged him to stay for a few moments until the scheduling mistake was sorted out. Then Serafina entered, believing she had found the correct room. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. The therapist calmly explained that both appointments had been mixed up. She offered to escort each person to the proper office. But something unexpected happened. Rowan quietly admitted he had spent years avoiding conversations about his own grief. Serafina surprised herself by confessing she was too exhausted to care which room she had entered. The therapist suggested they remain seated for a few minutes, simply as two strangers carrying invisible burdens. It sounded unusual, almost ridiculous, yet neither objected. The bright daylight streamed through the large windows, filling the room with warmth instead of tension. Outside, the city continued racing forward, unaware that two completely different lives were about to intersect forever. Rowan looked toward the backpack beside his chair before speaking about his daughter. He explained how every morning she smiled for his sake even when sadness still appeared in her eyes. He described working 2 jobs, cooking dinner, helping with homework, washing clothes late into the night, and pretending everything would be all right because children deserve hope even when adults feel hopeless. He admitted he no longer remembered the last time someone had asked how he was doing. Serafina listened without interruption. Every sentence struck a place inside her, heart that years of success had failed to reach. She had spent decades chasing promotions, expanding offices, negotiating contracts, and proving herself in rooms filled with powerful people. Along the way, she had sacrificed friendships, family gatherings, and every relationship that demanded more than a few spare moments. Her achievements filled magazine covers but never filled the silence waiting for her every evening inside a luxurious penthouse. Rowan possessed almost nothing society admired. Yet his entire life revolved around loving another human being. When the therapist gently asked why, Rowan kept going despite the endless hardships. He simply explained that every sunrise gave his daughter another chance to believe the world was still good. He refused to let his grief become the inheritance she carried into adulthood. Those words settled heavily inside Serafina's heart. For years, she had motivated thousands of employees using speeches about ambition and excellence, yet she suddenly realized she had never considered what kind of inheritance she herself was leaving behind. Wealth could build buildings, but kindness built lives. As the unexpected session continued, Rowan revealed another painful truth. Several months earlier, his landlord had increased the rent, forcing him to consider selling the small woodworking shop his late wife had helped establish. That workshop was more than a business. Every handmade table and chair carried memories of dreams, once shared between two people who believed simple work could create a meaningful life. Selling it felt like losing her all over again, yet he was running out of choices. Serafina remained unusually quiet. Her company had recently approved a massive redevelopment project in Rowan's neighborhood. The plan promised greater profits, but required purchasing several small, family-owned businesses, including woodworking shops exactly like his. She had signed the paperwork without ever visiting the area or meeting the people whose lives would be affected. For the first time, the spreadsheets in her office transformed into real faces with real stories. The session ended much later than expected. Both stood to leave, thanking the therapist for allowing an accidental meeting to become something meaningful. Rowan picked up Maris's backpack and walked toward the hallway without expecting anything more than another ordinary day. Serafina watched him disappear through the clinic entrance beneath the bright afternoon sun, unable to shake the feeling that fate had interrupted her carefully controlled life for a reason. Back at headquarters, the towering office suddenly felt colder than ever. Every conference room, polished floor, an expensive piece of artwork reminded Serafina how easily success could distance someone from ordinary people. Instead of attending her next meeting, she quietly reviewed every document connected to the redevelopment project. Hidden among hundreds of pages were dozens of family businesses scheduled for closure. Names replaced numbers, lives replaced profits, memories replaced percentages. The following afternoon, she drove alone to Rowan's neighborhood. Daylight illuminated streets filled with children riding bicycles, neighbors greeting one another, and elderly couples watering flowers outside modest homes. It was a community untouched by luxury, but overflowing with humanity. She found Rowan's workshop tucked between a bakery and a small bookstore. The windows displayed beautifully handcrafted furniture, unlike anything mass-produced, in expensive stores. Every piece reflected patience, care, and pride. She remained outside long enough to see Maris arrive after school carrying the same little backpack. The young girl ran toward her father with a joyful smile that briefly erased every hardship surrounding them. Rowan immediately stopped working, knelt beside her, and celebrated whatever drawing she eagerly pulled from her school folder. There were no expensive gifts, no glamorous vacations, and no impressive titles. There was simply unconditional love. Serafina realized she had spent years searching for fulfillment in places where it could never be found. Instead of announcing who she was, she quietly entered the workshop as an ordinary customer. She observed Rowan helping every visitor with patience and honesty, never trying to sell more than they needed. When an elderly customer struggled to pay for a repaired chair, Rowan reduced the price without hesitation. His kindness cost him money, yet he never appeared to regret it. That evening, Serafina returned home carrying a small, handcrafted picture frame she did not actually need. It became the most valuable item in her apartment because it represented something she had forgotten existed, people who placed compassion above profit. Over the following weeks, she quietly delayed the redevelopment project while personally reviewing every affected business. Her executive team resisted the decision, warning investors would become impatient. Yet for the first time in years, she refused to measure success solely by quarterly earnings. Instead, she introduced a new community partnership program that allowed local businesses to remain open while benefiting from the company's expansion. Profits would grow more slowly, but families would keep their dreams alive. Rowan never learned the full story until a local newspaper published an article praising the company's unexpected decision. Seeing Serafina's photograph, he immediately recognized the woman from the therapy room. He finally understood why everything had suddenly changed. The following morning, bright sunshine filled the neighborhood, as if the city itself had decided to begin again. Rowan unlocked the workshop before sunrise, expecting another ordinary day of sanding wood, repairing tables, and balancing bills that never seemed to stop arriving. Instead, he found a small envelope tucked beneath the front door. Inside was a handwritten note thanking him for reminding someone that leadership begins with listening, not commanding. There was no signature, but he already knew who had written it. He smiled quietly, folded the letter, and placed it inside the same little picture frame he had sold only days before. Some gifts could never be measured by their price. Meanwhile, Serafina returned to her headquarters carrying a different heart than the one she had possessed only a few weeks earlier. Employees noticed that she no longer hurried through the hallways without making eye contact. She began learning the names of receptionists, custodians, security guards, and interns. She asked people how they were doing and stayed long enough to hear the answers. At first, everyone assumed it was simply another leadership initiative, but they slowly realized the change was genuine. The walls of the company had not changed, yet the atmosphere inside them had. Kindness had quietly become part of the culture. News of the revised redevelopment project spread across the city. Dozens of family-owned businesses that had feared losing everything were now receiving support. Instead of eviction notices, young entrepreneurs were offered mentoring. Local craftsmen received contracts to furnish new office spaces. And neighborhood shops became partners rather than victims of corporate expansion. Investors were uncertain at first, but customers admired the company's new values. Within months, the organization earned something far more valuable than another profitable quarter. It earned trust. Rowan never asked for recognition. He continued repairing old furniture, teaching Maris how to carve small wooden birds, and living the simple life he had always known. Yet something inside him had changed as well. For years, he believed his struggles made him invisible. That accidental therapy session proved otherwise. The truth he had spoken without expecting. Anything in return had reached someone, with the power to transform hundreds of lives. It reminded him that even ordinary people can create extraordinary change simply by refusing to hide their honesty. Maris also began changing in beautiful ways. Her teachers noticed that the quiet little girl who once kept to herself now laughed more often and eagerly helped classmates who felt lonely. She entered a local art competition with a painting of two strangers sitting beneath a bright window while sunlight poured into the room. She titled it "The Right Mistake." The judges admired its colors, but her father understood the deeper meaning hidden inside every brushstroke. Sometimes children recognize miracles long before adults do. Several months later, Serafina accepted an invitation to attend a neighborhood community celebration organized by the businesses her company had helped preserve. She arrived without cameras, reporters, or bodyguards. She wanted to experience the day as an ordinary guest. Families filled the streets beneath the warm afternoon sun. Musicians played cheerful melodies. Children laughed while running between food stalls, and handcrafted decorations hung across the sidewalks. It felt nothing like the luxury events she attended every year, yet somehow it felt richer. When Rowan saw her walking through the crowd, he greeted her with quiet gratitude instead of admiration. Neither of them needed long speeches. Their eyes carried the understanding that one unexpected mistake had rewritten both of their lives. Maris proudly handed Serafina a tiny wooden heart she had carved with her father's help. The words engraved across its smooth surface were simple but unforgettable. "Truth changes people." Serafina held the little wooden heart as though it were the most valuable award she had ever received. Every trophy in her office celebrated success. This small gift celebrated humanity. Years later, employees would still tell new recruits the story of the day. Their CEO completely changed. Few knew every detail, and many believed it had become a company legend. They spoke about how decisions were no longer made by numbers alone, but by remembering the people behind those numbers. The company continued growing, yet it never forgot the neighborhoods that helped shape its future. That legacy began not in a boardroom, but inside the wrong therapy room on an ordinary sunny morning. Rowan's workshop also flourished. Customers traveled from distant cities to purchase handcrafted furniture because they admired the story behind every piece. He hired apprentices who needed a second chance, teaching them not only woodworking, but also patience, integrity, and compassion. Every chair, table, and bookshelf that left his workshop carried. A quiet reminder that broken things can become beautiful, again when restored with care. Serafina eventually admitted to herself that success without connection had always been an empty victory. She still worked hard, still led with excellence, and still faced difficult business decisions, but she never again forgot that every signature on a document touched someone's real life. Wealth had given her influence. Compassion finally gave that influence purpose. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world that kindness is never wasted. Special request before we end. Please comment with the words, "Kindness always wins." If you believe one honest moment can change someone's life forever, your comment may inspire another person who needs hope today. As the sun slowly settled over the peaceful neighborhood, Rowan locked his workshop and walked home beside Maris. Across the city, Serafina looked out from her office window, holding the tiny wooden heart in her hand. They lived in different worlds, carried different responsibilities, and had walked completely different roads, yet both understood the same timeless truth. Life does not always change because of perfect plans. Sometimes it changes because someone chooses to stay instead of walking away, to listen instead of judging, and to tell the truth when silence feels easier. One wrong door had led two strangers toward the right future, proving that kindness and second chances often arrive disguised as accidents, and for those willing to embrace them, they become the beginning of a life more meaningful than they ever imagined.